Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us today for the Safety and Health magazine webcast sponsored by Avetta. We're going to give our audience just a few moments to settle in today, and we'll be back to start the presentation shortly. Hi, everyone. We thank you again for joining us for the Safety and Health magazine webcast sponsored today by Avetta. We're going to give our audience about another 30 seconds or so to settle in, and we'll start the presentation shortly. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Safety and Health magazine webcast, Building Safer, Foundations of Effective Injury Prevention and Wellness for Construction Workers, sponsored by Avetta. My name is Barry Botino, and I am an associate editor at Safety and Health. I'll be serving as the moderator for today's event. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to share with you all today. As a disclaimer, the views of today's speakers and organizations are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Safety Council or Safety and Health magazine. Any mention of a commercial enterprise, product, or publication does not mean the council or the magazine endorses those items. After today's presentation, we'll conduct a Q&A with our speakers. If you have a question, just click the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen. Type in your question and press the send button. You don't have to wait for the Q&A to begin to send in a question. We welcome your questions at any time during today's event. After this presentation, you'll be asked to complete a brief evaluation survey, but I'll tell you more about that later. Finally, this webcast will be archived. If you'd like to if you'd like to view this presentation or any of our past webcasts, please go to safetyandhealthmagazine.com/events. With that, let's introduce our speakers. With us today are Kevin Lombardo and Nicholas Laughlin. Kevin is the president and CEO of Dorn Companies, which is a wellness-based pain management, early intervention and prevention, evidence-based specialty provider that helps reduce employers' costs. Kevin's areas of expertise include safety excellence, operational improvements, technology implementation, strategy, and leadership. Nicholas launched a career in safety in 2008, and he has partnered with a wide range of safety professionals and enterprises to create integrated, holistic safety solutions for workers in high-risk industries such as construction. Nicholas, who's the former safety director of Toffel Dent Construction, also has a certification in instinctive movement systems. He is also a certified holistic life coach. Again, we thank you all for tuning into this presentation. And Kevin, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you, Barry. I want to first thank Safety and Health, National Safety Council, and Avetta for sponsoring this and asking both Nick and myself to participate. We really appreciate it. As Barry said, I'm not going to dwell on this. This is a little bit of what Dorn is. We've been around 23 years. We've supported over 120,000 employees around the country and have saved employers over $100 million with our holistic approach to injury prevention and wellness. So let's get into what we're here to talk about today. Today, we're going to focus on the construction industry, but actually when you get into the actual dynamics of what we're going to talk about, it really spreads across all industries. And so we'll be a little bit construction focused because that's Nick's background, but we're also going to talk about many other injuries. We're going to talk about that holistic approach. I know that both Nick and myself at Dorn, we believe in NIOSH's total worker health approach, that total worker wellness, depending on how you want to word it. And we really want to bring out how you can take a holistic approach towards your employees' overall health and wellness and safety. Nick will walk us through a case study as what they did at his organization, and then we'll talk about next steps and Q&A. But before we get started, I believe we have a poll question that we want to put up there. And the question is, have you or one of your workers recently been involved in a workplace incident? It's a yes or no question. We'd like to understand, how many. We got about 124, 130 people on right now. How many of those we actually, are having some incidents in the recent mode, so that we want to make our conversation relevant to you. So we'll leave that up for another 15 seconds or so, and then we'll move on. Okay. Yes, 56%.
Not surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not surprising. Unfortunately, it's not surprising. So we thank everybody for participating in that. So let's talk about the construction industry and what it is today. It's one of the largest industries in the United States. Over 8 million people are participating in this industry. And then when you start thinking about the multiplier effect, when you start getting into subcontractors, maybe not so much they're directly involved in construction, but you start thinking about they're supplying materials, they're supplying services and so forth. You could multiply that 8 million by about 10. And there's a significant number of people that are directly or peripherally related to the construction industry. Unfortunately, as we saw in the poll, 1 in 10 construction workers, suffer an injury every year, higher than most industries. So I think the conversations today are going to be very, very relevant. 1 in 5 deaths amongst U.S. workers occur in this industry, and it's a significant thing. And I am so glad Nick is here today to really talk about the holistic approach that he's utilized, that we know that we utilize at Dorn with our organizations that we work with, that really help minimize not only injury risk, but risk of death. The construction industry experiences 71% higher rates of injury than other industries. As we saw, 1 in 10, it's a pretty significant, I believe, with OSHA. If you look at the overall incident rate, it's about a 2.0 or 2.1. We're talking about a much higher incident rate. And then we think about pain medication, opiate use, dependency on pharmaceuticals. If we went to conferences 3-4 years ago, right before COVID, you'd find 5 sessions on the opiate issue and things of that nature. Today, when I go to those same conferences, we're not seeing those sessions, but the issue is still there. And we really want to make sure that we keep it present in front of mind. I believe we actually have another poll question coming up. Okay. How do you currently prevent workplace injuries? Check all that apply. So we have the ability to check more than one. Do we pre-qualify workers? Are we doing fit for work testing? Are we doing, everybody has a safety plan, but do we have a safety and wellness plan, that holistic approach? Let's look at it from that standpoint when you answer that question. Safety training, protective PPE, incident intervention, and safety technology. And we're going to talk a little bit about technology at some point throughout the day today. So a lot of choices here. I'm sure most of you are doing a lot of these, but let's see where things like safety technology and pre-fit conditioning and those type of things. So I'm going to put my glasses on for this.
So we got a couple leaders, looks like PPE, yep, personal protective equipment, and safety training for workers.
Yes. No, and that's great. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. I think where we also want to go deep is in that wellness program, and maybe even just touch a little bit about technology if we can. So let's talk about the traditional construction workers. 89% male. Is that a surprise to anybody? Probably not. But I will tell you that dynamic is going to change over the years. If you look at actually the demographics and look at the census data, there are 16 states that have females outnumbering males by at least 6% or more. And overall, if you get to just more than 50-50, it's more than half the states in the US. But when you got 16 states that are 6% or more, that's a significant dynamic that I think everybody has to think about. 42 years old. that might say, okay, that's not a bad age, but that's your average age. There's still a tenured workforce going on out there in most industries and in the construction industries. So we have to think about apprenticeships. We have to think about getting into the trade schools again. A lot of those things have gone away over the years, and we need to kind of rebuild that. You know, there was just an infrastructure package passed last year. Think about all the new opportunities that are out there, and we're all struggling, including Dorn itself, struggling finding employees to fill those spots. I just saw the data yesterday. There are 10.5 million open jobs and only about 3.2 unemployed. Significant difference between.
Yeah, I think we need to change that paradigm, Kevin, you know, of why young people think it's not a good idea to go into the construction sector. I mean, there's a lot of job opportunity, like you indicated, and they just need to understand that, yeah, it's a long path, and there's some significant money to be made.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great career. We work with a lot of construction or municipalities that have road crews and other crews. And at the end of the day, something I said a few minutes ago is I think people going, construction companies going to the local schools, the high schools, the trade schools, and volunteering, teaching a seminar. They don't have to teach a class per se, but teaching a seminar, getting more engaged, I think is really going to help. One of the things that we see is mental health issues in this industry. The male construction worker suicide rate is 65% higher than other U.S. male workers in other industries. These are really issues that we have to address as a nation, not just as an industry, but since it's so prevalent in this industry and it's what we're talking about today. Again, I'm so glad, Nick, you're here today to talk about this stuff. And I'll just put up a few more things on here. When we talk about ergonomic risks, musculoskeletal disorders and ergonomic injuries, they're common. If you look at the data across all industries, it's about 1/3 of all industry injuries. Reality is in construction, it's probably about 60% of injuries are musculoskeletal related, back pains and those type of things. So this is your typical construction worker. There's a lot of areas we have to focus on. And how do we take that approach? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is Nick's, his model. I'm going to introduce it, and then we're going to go into components of it. But as you can see, Nick, I'm glad he's here because he also believes in that total worker health or holistic approach to employee wellness and injury prevention. So it's not just safety. It's wellness and injury prevention. And the reason I focus on wellness, and when Barry introduced us, he said Dorn is wellness-based, ergonomic, and injury prevention. Wellness is an important component of it, because if you don't take that holistic approach, I think you're really going to start saying, oh, we have a safety program. We have a stretch and flex program, which is probably the only time you're going to hear me use the word stretch and flex, because both Nick and Dorn are actually licensed and certified instinctive movement organizations that we can bring something different. We're going to talk about that today and the results of that. So taking that holistic approach, not having just safety programs, but having toolbox talks, those are all important because you still have electrical issues. You still have other, falls, things to be careful of, but this is more of a holistic approach. So Nick, I'm going to, let's get right into it and let's talk about the movement side of things. And, let's use a case study of what you were able to do at your organization. I'll just put up the slides here. We don't want to read the slides. We just want to talk about your program and how you were able to, let's start with movement and then we'll move to some of the other areas.
Yeah, I'll just kind of real quick, with the whole total wellness package, I just want everyone to on the call to kind of think about, this is the best way with these 6 foundation principles to optimize your body. And, like Kevin alluded to, we have a lot of issues or potential issues and hazards at work, but this is a lot of things that you're going to need to take into account that you can take away from the workplace. And do in your personal life every day. So, the goal with this program, I want everyone to understand is we're all unique, and the way we respond to food, exercise, and life stresses, vary from person to person. So the program, mission statement or goal was to assist you the individual and teach you how to address these issues to prevent you, or to help you feel better, looking and feeling your best. So, Kevin, you mentioned movement. So one of the foundation principles movement here, what we did at my last employer at Toll Dent. So, again, this is a comprehensive wellness program, but with the movement aspect, we had about 100 employees. And so the movement program utilized IMS, which stands for Instinctive Movement System. So it's an injury prevention program that was taught by, myself, and then really the founder, Dr. Tony Hall. And, so we were looking for each individual. They were all different shapes, sizes, right? We move different. So we were looking at just corrective measures and corrective metrics for any imbalances in the body. So, and that's through, traumatic musculoskeletal injuries. And so these movement corrections that Tony and I focused on were overall task performance, and that they encountered virtually in every job that they did. So
talk a little bit, Nick, about the adoption, because, we, as I said, we're licensed and we utilize instinctive movement with all our clients, and I can give case studies in our area, but let's stay focused in the construction area, because stretch and flex programs, what we find, have limited ability to maintain the mobility that you want. So as you were teaching these folks, the movements, which movement is movement, people might think, but it really is different than a traditional stretch and flex. But, how did people adopt to it? Did they really dive in, and did you see a different result of engagement against your traditional stretching program to the IMS program?
Yeah, I think we had to really start with that, because I think everyone had those preconceived notion of like, great, this is another stretch and flex program. And before I get into it, a lot of the stretch and flex programs, they focus on static stretching, and there's, I'm not going to say there's no benefit to it, but there's definitely little benefit versus, replacing it with this more advanced functional movement system in IMS. So, Tony has a very diverse background in sports medicine and strength and conditioning. So, that certainly helped. And you're saying, look, whether we approached it, we understand everyone has aches and pains, no one's exempt from that, especially like you alluded to with construction workers. So we have messed up necks and backs and shoulders. So we said, look, we're not going to heal your pain, but we're certainly going to make you feel better. Yep. And so we approached it that way and said, look, just hear us out. Let's go through this program. And then we're gonna touch base and come back, in a month, and then see how you're feeling.
Right. No, that's great. In fact, to just give people who are data driven, when we utilize this program, what we normally see is about a 98 to 99% retention of learned behaviors 8 months after a single class. So the difference is really significant. And when you get people, and the reason we all call it instinctive, is because it becomes instinctive to what they do. So whether they're moving their child into a dorm over the weekend, or whether they're rehabbing their house, or whether they're on the job, when they're utilizing these tools, it becomes instinctive to how they move. And I think that's the difference. That's the biggest difference that we see when we're working with organizations.
Right. It's just how you're engaging your environment, right? Yeah. And we all have different environments that we're dealing with day to day. And everyone has a different idea of fitness too. And my level of fitness, Kevin, might be totally different from yours. And that's okay. Some people just want to be able to roll their cans down the driveway and, to take out the trash and get up and down their stairs and not be in pain. Yeah. So this is again, we wanted just to not really focus on a program that was getting to the gym and taking more steps. It was just, trying to focus on how are you going to better engage your environment effectively.
Right. Well, let's move to the next piece, the breath work. I'd love to know what you actually implemented for folks. They can read the slides, but how did you
Right.
implement something like this?
Yeah, so breathwork's really unique. We have it in the slide as breathing. Some of you might have heard, breath work. So breath work, I first got introduced to it about, I guess it was 5 years ago. There's a guy that might have heard of Wim Hof method.
Mhm.
And so really the premises of that was, he looked at all these different modalities and he found with the breath work, we have the ability to really, up or down regulate our system. So I had a note here. There are dozens or hundreds of breathwork methods out there. One of the best ways to start, it's very simple. You could do 5 to 6 breaths. And then you're not holding your breath, but you'll slowly inhale for 5 or 6 breaths and then take 5 or 6 slow exhale, nothing fancy, and so with that test, they measured the nervous system's response to the breathing rhythms. And what was fascinating is that, if you even try to hold your breath or slow it down or speed it up, your heart rate variability is lowered, so you can, really affect like just how you're feeling. If I've been stressed and I'm having a long, stressful day or something triggers me, taking the time to stop and just go through a simple breath work exercise. So, really, we would practice some of the breath work with the groups, in the trailer or in the office and really just explaining the benefits of it. But, I really intrigued and we would go through some breath work exercises. Again, what I'm recommending is everyone, kind of try to do their own research. And again, like I alluded to, there's a ton of different breath methods. But
Do you find, Nick, that with an industry like construction, where it's very physically intense in a lot of cases, where, there sometimes people are working on adrenaline as well, that this is a reason that breath work kind of comes into place?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one book that I read. It was The Oxygen Advantage. It was actually just talking about the importance of regulating your breath during physical exertion. And so a lot of us over the years, it's this phenomenon, we became mouth breathers. It's actually better to breathe nasally for a couple of reasons. It's one, it's hydrating the air. You have your nose follicles that are scrubbing the air of pollutants. Also, what a lot of people don't know is there's a nitric oxide exchange that happens nasally, and that doesn't happen if you're breathing through your mouth. So just breathing through your nose, you get that benefit. But you might feel at first you're not getting enough breath in for that exertion, but it's going to definitely down regulate and control your heart rate variability.
Okay. Well, yeah, and let's segue into nutrition, and not so much. We all know we should all eat right? I'm guilty of a few things. We know that. But at the end of the day, when I put up the profile, the construction worker, where there was a significant number that may have been overweight and stuff like that. So not so much, I don't want to hear so much about what nutrition people should utilize. How did you talk to your workers about it, and what type of reaction did you get? Because you're in a rough and tough industry, and a lot of people's mindset, right? And people are people, it doesn't matter where they work, but at the end of the day, it is a physically demanding job. They need their strength, they need their nutrition, but a lot of people in the industry may have some be obese or just slightly overweight. How did you have the conversation, and what was the reaction from the conversation? Because we could see what you're recommending, but I want to hear about that conversation and the reaction from folks who maybe like to munch on the candy bar versus some of these things?
Yeah. It's tough from all the points that you've mentioned. My approach was, look, I'm not telling you how to eat. I'm not telling you need to be on a specific diet. There's a lot of fad diets. They seem like they come every 4 to 5 years, and it's the next best thing. Paleo, Atkins. What we got, keto's the big one right now. So how I approached it, again, like I said at the beginning of the program, is everyone's unique. Everyone has a different body type. And through my training and education, there's actually a test you can take to kind of determine. And that's what I had, the individuals do, so they could figure out, based on their body type, which they should focus on for their nutrition.
Oh, good.
But the biggest thing, and people don't, you have to be in tune with your body, so listen to your body. One of the biggest things I recommend is a rotation diet. So eat based on the seasons, what's available in the store, and getting a variety of foods, because that's going to give you a number of different nutrients.
Sure.
And what I want to touch on with this slide, so a lot of people, you can get lost in the grocery store. All right. Think about it in this way. So picked, pulled, slaughtered, or caught are the most bang for your buck, and will give you the most nutrient dense food. All of those items are going to be on the perimeter of the grocery store. Okay.
Stay out of the middle.
Stay out of the middle, stay out of the aisles, because all the aisles are going to be cooked out nutrients, processed food, things that have been cooked over 118 degrees, and there's really hardly any nutritional value in them.
So what was the reaction, though, of the folks as you're talking to them? That's the important thing, is for people on the call here, is because a lot of people, it doesn't matter whether they're construction and they're drivers, they drive trucks for a living. A lot of people eat these fast food things, and we all know it's no good for them, right? What was the reaction as you're trying to bring it to these folks? Did you see the 100 some odd of people? Did you see a tick movement, a change in maybe what they were bringing to work or how they were doing? If you all were supplying some of this to try to start the implementation, did you see a change in people?
You certainly did. I think, at least for me on the management side, on our offerings for bringing in lunches from meetings, you were taking into account maybe more healthier options, more wholesome foods, not just the junk foods. And I would get, I wasn't like opening lunch boxes and, hey, let's see what you got today. But it was, I got approached a lot more in just kind of, again, conversation around different things that the individuals could be doing. I want to make an important note that regardless of how you're living, your body's going to take and use all available resources, to, produce insulin, cortisol, and adrenaline. You're going to need those things to stay alive. And we're turning over so many cells in our body, millions of cells in our body. And imagine turning over a healthy cell if you're eating trash can food. You're not eating nutrient dense food. So now your body's trying to take those Cheetos and the Skittles or the candy bars or whatever you're consuming and turn it into a whole food. Okay. It's not going to get the nutrients in it. So
hand in hand with nutrition is hydration. So, obviously we know that we need to drink X number of glasses of water a day. Did you all, in your program, did you start providing, especially if you're working in the heat and stuff, did you start providing, in a previous life, I used to own a small business, and during the summer when our little plant didn't have any air conditioning, we would bring in bottled water or Gatorade to help people. How did you approach that?
Yeah. So we did, or actually working with Tony, he introduced me to the company, but, and maybe we could supply it in the show notes, but they had a product that was really with potassium, your
Mhm.
salts, electrolytes to provide, and B vitamins. My goal was to get people to stay away from your Red Bulls and your Monsters
Yep.
and these sugary drinks. So first, it was really educating. The human body is approximately 75% water, and water is separated in really two distinct categories. So it's the fluid outside of our cells, such as our blood, and the fluid inside our cells, in which is maintained. That's going to give you your cell rigidity and function. But so really, being our bodies with 75% water, that's what we need to be drinking,
Sure.
And then if you're drinking the teas and the coffees,
Yeah.
that's a diuretic. You're going to remove more and more hydration. And, depending on what you're doing, right, Kevin,
Yeah.
is you're going to burn through a lot more
Oh, absolutely.
liquids, you know. So it was replacing, especially in the summer months. So I'm in Phoenix, and it gets 115, and they're working
A dry
outside all.
heat, man. It's a dry heat though.
You're in the desert that's just sucking water from
Yeah.
So we realized too, no matter how much water you're drinking, you still needed to replace that, your minerals. So
Oh,
mineralization is huge with water
yep.
in the hydration aspect. For everyone on the call, I want to give you a tip. If you don't have, I guess, Gatorade or a Propel or say like
Mhm.
a working athlete, hydration replacement, you can pack it in your lunch. It's easy to take. Get pink Himalayan salt or Celtic salt, I think, or New Zealand salt, and if you sprinkle that in your water, just a pinch, like you don't want to be able to taste it,
Taste
but
it.
that's
Yeah.
going to give you the mineralization that you need.
Sure.
Um, and
No,
then
that's
add a
great.
little lemon to it, and that's going to bring you the hydration and mineralization you need.
Yeah, no, that's great because I know with organizations we work with, when we talk about nutrition and we talk about hydration as part of our training, we really look for organizations to, and depending on the number of workers, right? You can't go budget busting, but a lot of construction companies don't have large number of employees. They might have 150. So whether the company can either provide it or supplement it or get it at it because they've negotiated some bulk pricing, sell it
Right.
back to the employees at a discount. I think the takeaway here, folks, is to actually try to help your employees through making this stuff as available as possible. So, all the education in the world only goes so far. But when you start eliminating the soft drinks from the machine,
You're
and the
giving them
candy
healthy
bars from the machine,
alternatives, right?
yeah, you provide them the healthy alternatives, they start utilizing them, right? So let's turn to sleep. Uh, Here's something that you don't have personal control over: your employees. So
Right.
tell me how you were able to, did you actually, after you educate people, after you really talk to them about the rhythms and the movements and all the things that go into sleep and fatigue, did you do any surveys after to say, hey, who's got better sleep patterns? Because I know in some of the programs that we do, we actually survey, because we're a third party supporter, we do a lot of surveys of employees. And what we find is sleep patterns improve, exercise patterns improve, depending on what the training is that we're doing. But did you go in back and kind of touch base with some of the employees to get that feedback based on your education that you're seeing some of those sleep patterns improve?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I didn't mention it earlier, but with this wellness program, uh, we use some technology, and everyone who decided to, be involved with it, um, we gave them a Fitbit, and so the Fitbit actually had a function on it to track sleep. So, that was where, we could see if there was a uptick in their sleep, and if they were, it really was a mechanism so they could start paying attention to
Yep.
how much sleep they're getting, and really how they felt if they were getting more restful sleep. So We touched on the hydration, and we touched on the nutrition and sleep. Again, I want everyone to realize, this is like a spider web. Like if you're going to have your sleep and hydration, nutrition off, it's going to tug on another function. So,
Mhm.
the individual and combined function of these principles are going to radically influence, your digestion. They're going to radically influence your like assimilation, your metabolism, speed up
Yep.
your metabolism for fat loss, elimination too. Your ability to feel more with your body. So, a lot of people, they're going to bed at different times
Sure.
throughout the week, and I think the biggest thing for me, and I can just speak from my experience, is really just being really stringent, when I lay down. I mean,
Mhm.
I have a younger son, and so, honestly, after I get him down at 8, I'm followed by, 9 o'clock, my head's hitting the pillow, and
Yep.
I'm up at 5, and it's staying consistent with that sleep cycle. When we're bouncing around,
Yep.
that's going to mess with your circadian rhythm.
No, I think that's great. And I think other things, turn off your phone at a certain time. Don't check for emails, or even just check whatever you want, what personally you check. The more you can start doing that, the better. And in addition to what I think the Fitbit is great, because then not only can the employee start seeing the benefits themselves, but the employer, assuming that the employees are okay with it, can capture the data and really start looking at, are they seeing changes? Because again, we're a data driven company. When we work with folks, I don't care if I'm training them on IMS. When I was able to say 98 to 99% retention of learned behavior 8 to 12 months later, that's because we audit these things, and we're auditing, did people make it instinctive to how they do their job. So I think it's important for the audience that whatever you do around in any of these programs, and I do love the whole concept of what Nick's presented here, and we'll wrap it up with the mindset here in a second. But I think the reality of it is you have to be able to see some changes. So you have to create the system of getting feedback, whether it's surveys, whether it's through technology. I mean, we utilize technologies that measure cognitive impairment, and we see improvements over time as these programs are being implemented. Whatever your system is, and I know Nick or I would be glad to just chat with you about it at some point, you got to be able to measure the results. So let's touch the last base of your program, mindset, and really kind of just talk to us a little bit. Again, I want to hear about how you get construction workers, because that's our audience today. How do you get construction workers to really dabble in something that maybe, that's not something that they're normally dabbling in?
Yeah, and again, all these are correlated. So your breath work, mindset, and I'll throw in meditation are all,
Mhm.
huge factors here, in how to have that positive mindset. So a couple of notes on the slide here. So, again, your thoughts produce your body's actions, right? So
Yes,
it
absolutely.
was just, or you've heard the saying, thoughts become things. So it's just making sure, like, hey, how do maybe I'm having a bunch of negative thoughts that day, well,
Mhm.
and that's one on here, right? We have 78,000 thoughts a day, and
Yep.
90% are negative thinking. So it's trying to flip the script and being more positive, and having some discernment with those thoughts, and presenting yourself in a fashion. If I'm going to sit here and say, oh, slumped over, and I'm not happy about my body image, I'm not happy about this, I'm not happy about that. I mean, your body is going to start, it's going to function more poorly. So, mindset is challenging, but we try to give, or we tried to give our employees tools to where they could go to
Sure.
help improve. A big thing that we partnered with in this program was our insurance company, myself and HR. And we had employee assistance programs, right? So utilizing those employee assistance programs through insurance, to go talk to a counselor if you need to talk to someone, and how do you help yourself transition that or shift that paradigm from negative emotions to positive.
No, that's great. And I want to piggyback on that because if everybody recalls, and I'm just going to look at a cheat sheet here on the data, moderate to severe mental health issues, 83%. That's from the National Center of Construction Education and Research. So that's not just some, thought that somebody pulled out of the air. Male construction workers suicide rate 65% higher than US males. I will tell you that the mental health issues that I personally believe they were always there in society, in workplaces. It got exacerbated because of COVID. And I believe there's still because not so much construction workers, because they're on site, they're building, they're doing whatever. Me, I'm remote, right? My whole team is remote. We've been remote since March of 2020. And, now we periodically get together, but we don't have an office anymore. So the isolation, some of these other things, when you start thinking about what's going on in the world, social unrest, political unrest, it doesn't matter what you personally believe in, what side of the aisle that you're on, it doesn't matter. All these things start building upon people. There's domestic unrest. All these things are just starting to really be shown almost day in and day out. And I want to use an example if I could. There's a woman from a high-tech company unrelated to construction. Her name is Maddie. And on a Wednesday, this goes back, the story's about 6 years old. So, she sent an email to the entire organization that says, I'm taking a mental health day Thursday and Friday, to the entire organization, including the CEO. Well, the CEO, so first of all, if I'm doing this live in front of a whole group of audience, it should have been the poll question here, but it isn't. How many organizations would cringe if they saw that type of email? And I can tell you at one point in my life, I probably would have cringed seeing an email like that back when I was young and didn't understand things as I understand them today. Well, the CEO responds back and says, Maddie, appreciate your time and what you're about to do, and take that time because we're kicking off Project X on Monday and we really need you here. So it wasn't a negative, and it wasn't, she felt comfortable being able to do that in her organization. So what I want to kind of wrap up, and thank you, Nick, I think all the things you talked about, from movement to breathing, nutrition, hydration, mindset, they all play a part in this. And so start like you. I'm glad you said something a few minutes ago. You may not realize you said it. I talked to my HR group. We did a think tank a few years ago. We had 30 wellness directors. This was in the middle of COVID. They were starting to share their information with the safety people. A lot of companies, especially the larger ones, the stuff is siloed. Total worker health or total worker wellness means bring it together. Not only you start having wellness talk to safety, try putting the same programs under the similar umbrella. Have a portal that, whether it's a EAP or a wellness program or a mental health identification support program, or whether it's a IMS program, have it all together so people can access something. And it looks like the company's working together on behalf of the employees. So our approach is, we know there's ergonomic risk out there. That's the end of the day. That's the injury. That's the incident. That's the absenteeism. What we talked about today is, how do you address it way before it happens? Whether it's the model Nick utilized, which touches on wellness, touches on mental health, have these programs because they're all interrelated. And more, and I speak probably 12, 14 times a year, and we talk about the future of EHS. These three are on here, as well as things like technology, and well as things like other environmental and stuff like that. You have to really look at it holistically, but mental health and wellness are significantly integrated to the outcomes before an ergonomic injury. And then if there is one, after the injury, ensuring that you're taking care of people. So I wanted to kind of bring it together. I love your model, bring it together in more a higher level model.
Yeah, I want to add one thing.
Sure.
It might feel daunting to a lot of people to try to do this, but I'll tell you, it's no more daunting than it's going to be dealing with a life of illness.
Absolutely.
And injury. Because imagine, if you could take these and implement these slowly. I use this. It's the 80-20 rule. So live right 80% of the time, and enjoy yourself 20% of the time, without being a source of disease or illness. Because you're going to have to take all that time to go to the doctor and try to figure out stuff to do. And I'll tell you right now, they're just going to give you medications, and it's not going to get to the problem. So I don't want that for anybody. It's a model that we've seen that doesn't work. So I think the silver lining out of this whole COVID situation is people are paying more attention to their bodies and looking for another avenue than pharmaceuticals and doctors. So
good. So we have a couple slides just to kind of wrap, and then we're going to open it up to questions. I think, again, this holistic approach, but getting very specific to the construction industry movement. Nick did a great job talking about that instinctive movement systems that we spread it through all our clients. And I didn't know this about Nick before we met, that he's a certified trainer in well. So I think, as you could see, it's something that has touched many, many different industries. Rest and recovery, huge. We utilize the term industrial athletes. Some industries don't, it may not make sense for, but industrial athlete, an athlete gets to rest and recovery before their next game. Sometimes they have back-to-back games, but for the most part, schedules are such that your employees don't. A lot of your employees are going to a second job, or they're going home and rehabbing their because they're in construction. They think they could redo their whole house, and most of them get 60% there, and then they're too busy doing other stuff. But at the end of the day, they're doing something else, right? And the rest and recovery doesn't really get into what it should be. Pain management, we didn't talk a lot about it, but when you talk about the musculoskeletals, the IMS gets
the pain teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. When you get the IMS program will get you to the root cause, but if you have people already pain and discomfort, you have to really kind of really address it head on and really take care of it. And what you do is you're eliminating it. It's all OSHA non-recordable if you do it right with the right professionals, and you're helping your employees. And then the mental health and well-being. You see the line at the bottom. It's one of our taglines, but we think it's important. Empowerment through education and engagement. We didn't say empowerment through breathing. We didn't say empowerment through ergonomics, empowerment through pain management or what mental health. Education and engagement. You heard Nick a lot today talk about education. I know he does this, but I'm going to bring up the engagement level. When you start meeting people where they're at, not so much where you want everybody to be by saying, here's our program, meeting people where they're at, and you bring them along. You empower them. You empower them to take ownership. You empower them to be ergonomically aware of their surroundings. When you train them on something, we call ergo awareness, giving people ergo eyes. When you can do all these things, plus the model that Nick's brought to the table today, you really start changing the culture of the organization. And really what happens is safety comes out of Nick's hands and it's right in the hands of the people on the front line. And eventually that's what you want to do. And we're going to wrap this up here with what you're doing with these programs, Nick's program or a piece of his program, with some of these other things we've talked about. You're building a culture of safety, health, and wellness. You're not building a safe workforce. You're building this holistic workforce. You can customize your program based on your employees, because sometimes you're going to have crews of 2. Sometimes you're going to have lone workers in this industry. So whether it's on-site for larger groups like Nick was doing with his training, whether it's virtual program, whether it's app driven, all these things that, we touch employers that have sites of 1,000 people, 5,000 people, the sites that have 2 people, 10 people. How do you have programming that touches all of them? We're not here to talk about that today, but we can talk about that at some point. Consistent reinforcement of best practices. If you have somebody like Nick on your team or yourselves, and that you're engaged in this, absolutely, it's a positive reinforcement. If you don't, then you have consultants or other people who are on site multiple times a week to positively reinforce the best practices. And by the way, look at best practices. Look at, if you have multiple job sites, look who's doing it the right way and leverage that across the others. Get people involved and then give them the physical and mental wellness support that they need. So I want to thank everybody again. Thank Safety and Health, Avita. Barry, I'm going to turn it over back to you if there's any questions that are out there.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you, Nicholas, for sharing your insights with us today. Just a reminder for our attendees today, you can ask a question by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, typing in your question and hitting the send button. Before we start the Q&A, I also want to let everyone know about the evaluation survey that we're asking you to complete. This survey will pop up in a different screen after the webinar. Your input is important because it does help us to improve our future webcasts. And gentlemen, we will get to some questions here right now. And
Right,
Kevin, I wanted to start with you, and I'm so glad you brought up the mental health topic. We want to know, how can construction employers start to normalize that workplace mental health conversation?
Yeah, thanks, Barry. I think it's having the conversation, right? My personal definition of culture, and this is just my personal definition, is the sum total of conversations. The conversations in the lunchroom, in the break room, on the job site. We could have all the posters in the world, we could have all the toolbox talks in the world, but it's the conversations. So a lot of times it starts informally, because I think if you just start rolling out formal programming, a lot of times it just doesn't sit right. It goes over people's heads, and now you have to do some things formally. But if you're going to really make a significant paradigm shift, start finding your informal leaders or the leaders on the front lines, get them engaged in this process, start talking to them about it. Just sometimes asking somebody, how was your weekend? Especially if they kind of have either a rough home life or they're struggling financially. Sometimes it's just giving them an ear to, somebody to listen to. So I think starting that way in some fashion, depending on the culture of your organization, if your culture is a little bit further along, really bringing in some experts. And we're doing a webinar in another week, and mental health is not my area of expertise. We've got a PhD behavioral scientist that's going to be on there. So sometimes bringing in that specialist to have some conversations, not saying here's a program, but how do you start thinking about it? So I think it's baby steps, Barry. It really is baby steps, because unless your culture is such that you're very down the path of a paradigm shift and you're just putting on top, then you could formally go in and start adding it. Other than that, you have to take the baby steps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I would just like to add, Kevin, you hit it. It's management, it's their partnership with management and the employees. And this partnership is the most effective for establishing and fostering that culture. You don't want to just do it from management. Hey, this is our program. Like you said, it's not effective that way. But if you get buy off, you're gonna buy off on including them. It's gonna get you a lot more.
Great, thank you, Nicholas. And we did have a couple questions come in regarding this. Obviously, with any new program that comes along, there may be some hesitancy with some folks. What's the best way to get buy-in from workers?
Well, I'll start if that's okay. I will tell you, whenever we start with a new client, we don't go in and do our programming. We go in and we do a lot of lunch and learns. We do a lot of, we call it immersion week. And sometimes clients will go, oh, geez, am I getting charged for immersion week because you're not doing XYZ, which is in the scope of services. So we do an immersion week or sometimes 2 weeks, because one, our person needs to be immersed in the organization, right? But forget us. Let's say you're doing it within your own organization. You have your own resources. Doing the lunch and learn, start putting it into the newsletter. Start, one of the areas that we focus heavily on is supervisors and maybe in the construction industry, superintendents. They're the ones who get beat up for productivity, right? They're the ones who are getting the emails and the texts and saying, hey, we're behind, we got to get moving. If you don't get them engaged to the point that they are believers and advocates, it will fail. Because when we're doing a program and somebody says, oh, you need to go see your Dorn person, there's a way to say, oh, it's 11 o'clock, go see your Dorn person with that. Or, hey, it's 11 o'clock, Nick, you should, you're a little bit late, you should go see your Dorn person. I said the same thing 2 different ways. It's that, I believe it's that middle management that makes or breaks a program, because employees, you'll get your bell curve, and then you'll get once people really buy into it, they'll pull people themselves. You don't need Nick or Kevin or Dorn to pull people. People pull people themselves, but you got to get the culture right. And I think it's that immersion, it's the lunch and learns, it's the middle management, the supervisors that really are key.
Yeah, I'll add just, we did it, and I've done it with pretty much every construction firm I've been with. It's great. It's utilizing those, we call them stand downs, and when you're doing that toolbox talk, because they're required on a weekly basis, you're involving not just foremen and supervisors, you're involving everybody on the project, all boots on the ground, because then they're getting the information directly from you, and it gives them a platform for them to speak up. Oftentimes I've seen time and time again, they'll have these siloed meetings, and then the information never gets disseminated from the foreman to the boots on the ground. So I was like, time out, we're doing this all together.
And Barry, I can add one more thing, and this
Sure.
comes from a previous life 100 years ago. We had something we called the President's Council, and we created something where we actually had frontline people who were part of this group that quarterly got together with the CEO, originally from the parent company, and then in my division, we did the same thing. And what it wasn't to go around the managers and the superintendents and stuff like that, but it was to get feedback. It was to, hey, how's this going? This is what we want to do. How's this going to play in the organization? What's the best way to do that? So as Nick just said, because he triggered that with me, was, hey, it's the superintendents that are delivering the toolbox talks and all those other things. Management has to be able to chat with people informally or in some fashion, whatever that looks like in the organization, whatever works, to get that feedback. One, is the message getting down into the organization? And 2, how is it being received? So I think, a President's Council or something of that nature, but, is another way to get that feedback, to make sure that what you believe you want to accomplish is actually being delivered, received, and in some fashion being implemented.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Nicholas, I had a quick one for you. One of our audience members asked if you could repeat your 80-20 rule. And she says, I love simple ways that we can bring that to the workplace to start incorporating a number that workers can apply to their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, so the 80-20 rule is, you live right 80% of the time, so focus on those 6 foundation principles, and then enjoy your life, because we're all going to enjoy the fruits of our labor and what the offerings are in life 20% of the time.
Absolutely.
And that's without being a source of disease or illness to yourself. So that's the 80-20 rule.
Great. Thank you for that.
It also helps that work-life balance that most everybody, if you take surveys, says that they don't have. And I'm sure it's in the construction industry too, given the shortage of workers.
Certainly. We wanted to go next to hydration. We had a question come in that asks, we know hydration is essential during warm weather, clearly, but how do we ensure that recommendations for water consumption stay the same throughout the year? And I guess I think about here in Chicago, for example, during the colder months, how do we ensure that happens hydration-wise?
I'll take that one. I had it on the slides, but again, my training in research. So what I found, taking your body weight and then dividing it in half, and that's going to be your ounces, how much water you need to be drinking daily. Doesn't matter, how cold or how hot it is. That's your baseline.
Great.
There's science for you, Bear.
Yeah, great tip. Great tip. Thank you. Kevin, our audience for Safety and Health always loves to learn about resources. Are there resources for things like breath work and instinctive movement systems that we can share with our audience? Any websites that you can share or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. For instinctive movement, they could reach out to Nick or myself, because we're both groups are certified in this. But we have some short videos that are not marketing videos. They're just very about the topic. So we could share those if that makes sense.
Sure.
We try not to, we try to make a lot of educational things that are not brand specific. I think with all the data that I had, there's a lot of, where we talked about the construction worker and some of the issues they're facing. We have all the sources, and we could send links out to the group if you want to do that in mass. I'll have Yulia, who you've met, reach out to you with all those links to those sources so people could look at that. And then I think, Nick, if you could maybe send to Yulia, so we just do it all at once, some of your links to some of the nutrition and the breath work and stuff like that. So I think it's a good thought, Barry, that we could put all this together into a singular resource document that people can then go and look, educate themselves on.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Look,
I'll throw
ahead,
out, we'll do that, but I'll throw out, I'm reading a book right now. It's called Just Breathe, and so Just Breathe's out there on the market. It's from Dan Brule, and that's Brule. And so he's kind of one of the OGs in breath work. And it's been a great read. So, but yeah, I'll provide some other information. One thing, I know everyone's from probably all over the country, get on Google and just type up, there's plenty of places. It's now kind of been thrown in industry. There's a lot of places offering breathwork classes. So
great.
So yeah, Nick, maybe send all that to Yulia, and we'll put together a mass resource list that's non-marketing oriented, Barry.
Perfect. That sounds great, guys. It looks like we have time, guys, for one more question today. And Nicholas, you made the comment that we're all unique. And I wanted to ask, for our audience of safety professionals, are there any specific things that they should know to keep in mind for perhaps older workers or female workers?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to trying to listen to your body. Look, we're all at different levels, different ages. We all have different things going on in our lives. So I think it's important to, talk with your primary care physician. And if you're not doing so already, one thing that I've done over the years is I try to go in on an annual basis and I get some blood work done. It gives me a baseline of where all my body is at this time and where I need to focus some of my efforts. So that will give you kind of a good idea as far as internally what you need to focus on. But there's, like I said, there's not like a diet plan for everybody, because we are also unique, based on our genetics and what we're pre-exposed to and things of that nature. So
yeah, Barry, I would add, and I agree wholeheartedly with what Nick just said, but I think the other thing that organizations can do is understand the demographics, right? In general,
certainly
look at your health data, work with your HR group to look at your health data. But I think when, the comment I made earlier, where 16 states have at least 6% more women than they do men, the dynamics of the industry is going to change. We didn't talk about safety technology today, but you got to start thinking about the future, right? And what does that look like? So you have to take into account maybe not so much the uniqueness of the individual, although I think a lot of organizations try to get to that level of granularity if you can, but look at the uniqueness of work groups, whether it's age groups, whether it's male versus female, whatever it might be, and also people that have cultural differences that, you have to take into account. If you understand your demographics within your organization today, what the demographics of the area you work in, the community, and where that's going, you can develop these programs that may be exoskeletons, maybe wearable sensors, maybe motion capture type technology, which we didn't dive into today, right, can be utilized to help define easier ways for those folks to do the job, as well as what Nick's model around nutrition, breath, and movement. So I think it's a combination. And that's where I think the safety leaders need to go, is then start going, once you figure out which piece of this model you want to put in, but then start thinking about the future.
Great. Well, thank you both for the conversation today. We really appreciate it. Unfortunately, folks, we've run out of time today. We thank you all for attending today's presentation, and we would appreciate you taking a little bit of your time to share your feedback via our survey. A special thank you today goes out to our terrific presenters, Kevin Lombardo and Nicholas Lofton, and everyone from our sponsor, Avetta. This ends today's Safety and Health Magazine webcast. Take care, everyone, and have a safe day.
Thank you.